Hi, everybody. My name's Polly, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. Gosh, is it neat? I can't see you because of the light, but I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's, it's just really neat to be here. I needed to share with you a little nostalgia because when Terry called me and invited me to Hagerstown, Maryland to speak, I was so excited. Did I not say it right? No, I didn't. Terry called me. Yeah, she did. Terry was the one who invited me. I don't know what I said wrong, but obviously it was some Hagerstown. What did I say? Hagerstown. Sorry, guys. Now I see why. And I said, where is that? And she says, well, it's not very far from Baltimore. And so I just got a lot of little twinges because the very end of my drinking was in Glen Burnie, Maryland. Oh, we have some... My ex-husband was at the National Security Agency, and we're old Air Force. I was, at the time, we were in the Air Force, and I was a dependent in the Air Force. So it's, there's just a lot of nostalgia, and it's been those kind of feelings. And when Debbie picked me up at the airport, I just told her, I said, you know, I've just got these feelings, and there's a lot of nostalgia, and it's wonderful to be here. And when I first came into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, a lot of people said, you'll get to do sober the things you got to do drunk. And so here I am. I haven't been back in 18 years, but 18 years later, here I am. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your committee allowing me to be here this weekend, because it's brought back some wonderful memories to me, and it's just... And one of the guys that I met a fellow, I didn't know how to get over here to the convention center, and this gentleman was on the elevator, and he looked at me and I said, I'm following you, because he had a badge on, and so he led me to the convention center. And I'm just really grateful to be here. And he was from Annapolis, and I certainly know where Annapolis is. And so, anyway, thank you so much for allowing me to come back to Maryland 18 years later. And when I was here, it was good times and bad times, because my ex-husband fell ill here, and that's how come we retired and went back to Texas, because he was medically retired from the Air Force. And so there was a sad time, but I loved Maryland. And both of my sons were just, so excited that I was coming here, because they have a lot of pleasant memories of Maryland. So thank you. I just want to tell you about my day today. One of the things that Alcoholics Anonymous does, it just takes care of you no matter where you go. And I boarded a plane this morning at 6:45 at Orange County Airport in California. And I got on the plane, and I sat next to this gentleman, and I noticed him put into the back of the seat a Sermon on the Mount. And my little head tick, 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 tick. I said, So we just got to talking, and he said, you fly a lot? And I said, yeah, I fly a lot. And he said, business? I said, no. And he says, well, why do you fly a lot? And I looked at him and I said, well, I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm asked to go across the country and speak from time to time, so I get to fly on airplanes. And he looked at me and he says, I'm an alcoholic too. And I said, somehow I just knew that. And that's the first time in all the time that I've been traveling in the last 6 years that I have sat right next to somebody that was in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he lives in Rhode Island. He has a contract in Southern California. And next Monday night, he'll be at my AA home group. So it was like so fun. I mean, these are the kind of things that happen in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And one of the things that's really neat is that if you land you land at the airport and you've got a nice little drive before you can get to the convention center, and you've only got a few minutes to dress, you don't have time to get nervous. So God takes care of you. So anyway, I've had an absolutely fabulous day. I've got to be at Debbie's home. I got to drive out here with her and her husband, and it has truly been a great day. And if it hadn't been for the disease of alcoholism, I would have missed this gift. And I'm so grateful for the disease of alcoholism. I didn't think 18 years ago when I was living in Glen Burnie, Maryland, I didn't know I had a disease called alcoholism, but I knew that my life was falling apart, and I didn't know why. Because my husband was at the National Security Agency, and we were invited to go to, a lot of parties where there was a lot of dignitaries, and I was terrified. And today I wish I could do those days over again, because if I could do those days over again, I'm sure that I would appreciate the opportunity that I had. But I was so terrified, and I knew that there was something wrong with my drinking, but I just didn't know what to do about it. And it's just not considered appropriate behavior for an officer's wife to be drunk and disorderly. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever had to do any controlled drinking, but I would have to take a cocktail, and I knew there was something wrong with me. I didn't know it was alcoholism because I didn't know anybody that was an alcoholic, but I knew that there was something wrong with me, and I would just have to sip one drink. And I'm here to tell you, a 4-hour cocktail party can be a lifetime. So it's very different today as I return to Maryland. The Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that I should share in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what I'm trying to be like today. And I will share that with you. Besides having the disease of alcoholism, I am a recovering Southern Baptist. So when I came to the program, in case you miss the accent, this is Texas accent, not California. So, and I grew up in Texas, right where they took the Bible Belt and gave it an extra tug. And I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous with a lot of old ideas about God. But one of the things that I have learned about the disease of alcoholism is that I have learned that I have a disease of perception. And if you've never heard Clancy's tape, Alcoholism, A Disease of Perception, I highly encourage you to get that tape, because that tape, he talks about me and my alcoholism, because I don't know if anybody in that Baptist church told me the things that I heard. But I'm here to report to you only the things that I heard. And my mother says, I can still remember her saying things like, "Polly, wherever did you get those ideas? No one said that to you." So I've got this kind of head that you give me a set of information, it takes a walk through my head, and what comes out usually doesn't even resemble what went in. Now that's the kind of head I have. So I'm here to report to you my perception of what was heard, because today I know that my perception of reality is distorted. And I need to keep coming to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous because I need you to keep me in touch with reality. Because without you, I have not a clue of what living life on life's terms is all about. Because my perception of reality usually doesn't even resemble what reality is. But when I was in these Baptist churches, I heard things like, "You're born a sinner." Now I have the kind of head that you put into my head, "You're born a sinner," and I think of this little baby born a sinner, and I think if that little baby came all screwed up, then it's downhill from there. So I had this hopeless feeling about life. I never believed that there was any way that good things could happen to me. I can remember things like my mother saying, "We live in a God-fearing home." And today, thanks to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I live in a God-loving home. And I would hear these preachers stand up at the podium, and they would slam their fist on the podium, and their faces would get red, and their veins would stick out, and they'd lean into the congregation, and they'd say things like, "If you've thought it, you've done it." And I don't know about you, but I was an alcoholic in the making, and I thought a lot. So I just took on this attitude of what's the use, and I began to get that hopeless feeling that there's no way that God will ever love a person like me. And I also had this idea that bad things happen to other people because of things I had done. Now, I don't know where I ever got that idea, but that's the kind of ideas that I had. I just knew the world was being punished for what I was thinking. And so my perception of God was nothing like the God that you showed me in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I believed that God lived way up in the sky somewhere, and there was just no way that you could ever talk to God. I mean, you needed to go through these people. And I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and, that was not the message that you gave me. And you gave me the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And in the big book, it says where God is. And it says that God is deep within. And it says how to find God. And it says to search fearlessly. And today, for me, God as I understand Him is expressed to me through the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because sometimes I don't know what's best for me. I don't know what I need to do. And I need for you to share your experience, strength, and hope so I can have a better idea how to live my life. Because without you, I don't have a clue how to live life on life's terms. I also have a higher power who's got a dynamite sense of humor. My name is Polly. It's not Paula or Pauline. And I'm here to tell you, if your name is Polly and you're a little girl, it's going to be things like Polly wants a cracker and Polly Wally Doodle all the day. And I also had zits all over my face, so it was pizza face and pus face. And, none of those things do a lot for your self-worth. And I don't know about any of you, but I'm sensitive. And I don't like to be teased. And I don't like to be laughed at. And have you ever gone on a school ground and you see this group of kids and they're teasing this one little kid, and the more they tease the one little kid, the more the little kid cries, and the more the little kid cries, the more the group of people tease. Well, I was always that little kid that everybody was teasing. And of course, the more I reacted to the teasing, the more they teased. But I've learned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that there's no negatives in God's world. It's just my perception. But everything has a positive result. And today I am convinced of that. Even though my perception of it is negative, everything has a positive result. And today I love having the name Polly. Because I can go into rooms, there's a lot of people in this room, and most of the time I'm the only Polly. So if somebody says Polly, I'm pretty sure they're talking to me. I didn't know I had a disease called alcoholism. I knew that I was a drunk, and I knew that I was a lush. And I used to drive down the freeways in Dallas, Texas, and pray to God to have heart disease or cancer or something. Because I knew I was dying, and I just wanted to die of something respectable. And today I know that the disease of alcoholism is my greatest gift. Because if I didn't have the disease of alcoholism, I wouldn't qualify for the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And everything I am or hope to be, I owe to the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. 12 years ago, this past Tuesday, I married Dave. Dave's last name is Pistol. My name is now Polly Pistol. I guarantee you're not going to walk around on planet Earth with a name like Polly Pistol and not learn to lighten up. It's just... We got a rule around here called Rule 62, just don't take yourself so damn seriously. I guarantee you with a name like Polly Pistol, I am not apt to take myself very seriously. So my higher power has a dynamite sense of humor, and for that I'm really grateful. I am also living, breathing proof that you can come to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and not come from alcoholic parents. I do not come from alcoholic parents. One of the things that I was told when I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous was to start to identify with the feelings, because I believe the way we drank and the things we did while we were drinking are the things that make us different. But how we felt about our drinking is the things that make us alike. And what I started to do was to identify with the feelings. And people would get up here and they would talk about their alcoholic mom or their alcoholic dad. And I began to be able to identify with the feelings. Because you see, my dad did a lot of things just like an alcoholic. My dad was full of rage. And he would have fits of rage just like a periodic alcoholic. And my mother and I never knew when that was going to happen. And my mother used to say things to me like, Polly, just be nice. If you'll just be nice, then Daddy won't have one of his fits. But you see, Daddy always had one of his fits. And when he did, furniture would fly, and he'd curse and yell, and he'd knock my mom around. And somehow I thought it had something to do with me. Had I just done better or been better, then Daddy wouldn't have had one of his fits. And I used to say the same thing about my dad I've heard you say about your alcoholic dad. And that was, there's no way I'll ever be like you. And the irony of it was, I became just like him. And I'd look at my mom and I'd say, you're such a wimp. Why don't you stand up for yourself? Why do you let him do things like that to you? And I looked at her and I'd say, no way will I ever be like you. And the irony of it was, I became just like her. And what I realized was I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the worst of both my parents, because these were good people. But somehow or another, I have this negativity that goes on inside of me. And you know, they write a song, they had that song that they used to sing, you know, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Well, I've got this kind of, I'm down deep inside of me, the kind of person I am is accentuate the negative, eliminate the positive. That's the kind of person I am. And I became the worst of both my parents. Now, I don't know about any of you, but I am the kind of person that wants everybody to like me. And what happens is I am addicted to approval, just like I am addicted to so many other things. And what will happen is if I know 50 people, say there's 51 people in the room, and 50 people just love and adore me, and one person doesn't like me, I will discount the 50 and run after the one. That's the kind of head I have. I am constantly concentrating on the negative. And today I am aware of that character defect, and I know for me that I have to look at that. Because some people, you know, it's like I just want I want everybody to love me and adore me. And what I've learned is all of the people, all of the time, just aren't going to like you, Polly. And I have a hard time accepting that. It's just, I need that approval and I need that validation. What happened for me is that I was the kind of person that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about, manipulation through kindness. I was a person who so desperately needed your approval that I would do nice things for you, and I would want you to say nice things back to me. I wouldn't do nice things to you because I wanted to. I would do nice things for you because I wanted you to approve of me and to say nice things about me. Because you see, in and of myself, I was a zero, and I needed you to approve of me. And if you didn't love me and approve of me and do it the way I thought you did, then I just said, well, you don't appreciate me. And I was also the kind of person that never took responsibility for my own feelings and never took responsibility for my own actions. I was the kind of person that would just sort of puff up, and I would sit there, and you were supposed to figure out what was wrong with me. You were supposed to figure out what would make me happy, and if you didn't love me. And that is the kind of person who came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was also a person who took all my anger and revenge out on my 2 little boys. And to the rest of the world, I just looked so nice. I was so nice to everybody outside my own family. I was not nice to my husband, and I was not nice to my children, but I needed your approval, so I took all my rage and anger out on them. I know today that my disease is spiritual in nature. I am an only child, and I know without a doubt that I was a very, very loved child. I know that lots of people come to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous with a lot of child abuse, and those things are tragic things that happen to the people. Many people have these tragic things happen to them. And what had happened for me, if I had any kind of abuse, it was just that I was loved too much. My parents absolutely loved me to death. But what was wrong with me is that I never could feel it. I never, ever could feel that people loved me. And it wasn't until I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and I realized that I suffered from a disease that was spiritual in nature. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about a spiritual malady. It talks about being separated from the sunshine of the Spirit. And the big book says when you are spiritually ill, nothing is enough. There is nothing that anybody can do. You cannot be loved enough. People can't do enough for you. Nothing is enough. And I was bankrupt inside until I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. At 18 years old, I married an Air Force officer, and I knew I had found my knight in shining armor, and we were going to sail off into the sunset and live happily ever after. Well, I had married a SAC pilot, and not only was he going to be gone, but he was going to be gone for years at a time, and I was going to have to learn to be responsible for myself, and I never, ever knew how to do that. Also, I was introduced to alcohol in the Air Force. And I'm sure they still have these things. They used to have coffees, but they served more than coffee. It was screwdrivers and Bloody Marys. So it was screwdrivers and Bloody Marys in the morning, sherry before lunch, martinis before dinner, and Black Russians and Stingers after. And it never, ever occurred to me that there was anything wrong with my drinking for a very long time. I thought that everybody drank the way I drank. And for a long time, it was okay. And for a long time, it didn't give me any problems. A lot of people stand up and they talk about for them, excuse me, that for them, they took a drink of alcohol and it went down and it went out into the arms and their toes and everything was wonderful. That's not what happened for me. There's a sign in a club in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that sign describes my disease perfect. And it says, the chains of alcoholism were too soft to be felt until they were too strong to be broken. It was as though the disease was there before I ever knew it was there. It never ever occurred to me that there was anything wrong with my drinking for a very long time. I thought that everybody drank the way I drank. And I have friends that I still am friends with who are in the service with us. And I'm here to tell you, none of those people are in Alcoholics Anonymous, and none of them need to be. So there was a difference in my drinking. I just didn't see it. Along about 1962, we got stationed in a place called Loring Air Force Base, Maine. And it's very cold up there. And I had these 2 little boys. I had not a clue how to be a mother. I did not know what to do for little kids. I had no parenting tools whatsoever. And these 2 little boys, I couldn't tell them to go outside to play. It was 50 below zero. And they were driving me crazy. And I was having a nervous breakdown every 20 minutes. So I went to an Air Force doctor, and he said, take these. And from 1962 until 1977, when I found the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I drank alcohol, and I took Librium and Valium and Seconal and Nimutol. And I'm here to tell you, if you take those kind of drugs and you drink alcohol, you are not an active alcoholic. I call myself a couch potato alcoholic. I did my dying on my living room sofa. I just laid there and watched soap operas and listened to Joan Baez sing the blues. So there's not a lot of drunk-a-log that I'm going to tell you tonight, because I slept through it, and so would you. My son is going to be 9 years sober in January in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've had the opportunity to hear James speak from podiums of Alcoholics Anonymous, and his story sounds very different than my story. And James talks about being a little boy, and his mother's passed out on the sofa, but he doesn't know that she's passed out, and his dad is gone. And he just walks back and forth in front of that sofa, and he's absolutely terrified because his dad is gone, and he's certain his mom is dead. And that's the disease of alcoholism. The disease of alcoholism is a family disease, and anyone who lives with a practicing alcoholic is affected by the disease of alcoholism. I just believe that with all my heart, and the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about that. I just believe that I have had to learn to take responsibility for those actions, and I've had to learn to take responsibility for what the disease of alcoholism has done to my children. At any rate, I'd like to tell you some of the things that brought me to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I did not wake up one day and say, geez, I think I'll go get sober. That's not the way it worked for me. I love what my husband says. He says, an alcoholic, the disease of alcoholism, has two characteristics. Dr. Thibault said, in every alcoholic, there are two characteristics: defiant individuality and grandiosity. And one of the things that he says is that an alcoholic can be laying in the gutter and feel superior to those looking down on him. I can identify with that. Because, you see, I was such a lady, and I could not even imagine that I had the disease of alcoholism. And one night I was passed out on the sofa. If it was 8:30 at night, I was always passed out on the sofa. And my husband jerked me up and he sat me at the kitchen table and he said, alcohol and pills are our problem. And if you just didn't drink and if you just didn't take these pills, everything would be okay. And he started throwing the pills down the garbage disposal and the booze down the drain. And I just sort of sat there in my comatose state, and when he was done, I went and passed out. Now, my disease had progressed to the point that I ceased to wake up or go to sleep. I passed out and came to. I also had taken to drinking things like NyQuil, cough medicine, vanilla extract, and scope, because I believed that if you couldn't smell me, then you couldn't tell me. You know, you couldn't tell I was drinking. I don't know what I thought about behavior. I thought it had all to do with smell. At any rate, when he got through doing that, I just went and passed out on the sofa again, and I came to about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I really just was too sick to drive to the 7-Eleven to get a bottle of NyQuil. And that night, I found myself crawling around my garage floor, taking those bottles out of the plastic bags and turning them up to just get one drop. I had reached that place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about the dilemma of the alcoholic, where to drink is to die and not to drink is to die. And I absolutely had to have a drink of alcohol. And that night my husband caught me downing a bottle of rubbing alcohol. I had to drink to live. Shortly thereafter, I had an automobile accident in Irving, Texas. And to make a very long story short, I am a blackout drinker. I have no idea what happened, but I totaled this automobile. I got out of my car, walked to a phone booth, called the police, and told them my car had been stolen. And so here comes the police with my husband, and I'm taken to the Irving police station. And I get to see that look on the non-alcoholic's face that just doesn't understand why we do the things we do. And this policeman looked at my husband with so much disgust, and he said, why don't you just take her home and sober her up? And on the way home, my husband said to me, Polly, there's a treatment center, and it's not far from my house, and I wish you would go. And that night, I entered treatment for the first time. And this was a county detox, and it was for 7 days. And I entered this treatment center, and I loved the people. They took us to a lot of AA meetings, and I thought it was great. But there was just something down deep inside of me that said, Polly, people like you just don't become alcoholic. And while I was in this treatment center, I had what we call in Texas a jitter house romance, where sick falls in love with sick, and you walk off into happy destiny. And we walked off into happy destiny for 58 days. And I was 12-stepped and brought back into that treatment center. And I had then reached that place in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that talks about the pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. Because now I knew what the problem was. The problem was sobriety. And I love to hear, as I mentioned Clancy before, but Clancy can describe the disease of alcoholism with so much elegance. And he talks about, the disease of alcoholism being not able to live comfortable in my own skin sober. And that's why I need the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, just so I can live comfortably in my own skin sober. And one of the things he also says that totally describes me, and what was the problem with me all along, was that I always have to be treated special just to feel average. And if I'm not treated special, I feel rejected. And those were the feelings that I had deep inside of me. I was just so humiliated that I knew what the problem was. The problem was sobriety. And I couldn't live sober. And when that 7 days was up, I knew that there was no way that I could live inside my own skin sober. So I left that treatment center and I checked into a motel and I got a bottle of scotch and I got a bottle of Valium. Now, I don't believe that there's anybody in this room that doesn't have an Eskimo in your life. And an Eskimo is someone who leads us to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Maybe it's a parent who says you can't, or maybe it's a spouse that says, you can't live here any longer because of what your drinking is doing to us. Or maybe your job says if you don't get your act together, you can't work here. Or maybe you're here because you got a nudge from the judge. Or maybe you've just seen the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous carved in somebody's life. But whatever, somehow we get to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and we're led here by someone or something. And there was no different for me. There was a lady in my life who loved me. She knew nothing about the disease of alcoholism, but she loved me. And she said that day that something came over her. And today I know what that something was. That something was God working in my life through her. And she drove around until she found my car parked outside this motel. And I hadn't shut the door all the way. It was on a half latch. And she pushed the door open and she found me laying there. And on April the 8th of 1977, I was pronounced dead on arrival in a hospital in Bedford, Texas, an overdose of alcohol and Valium. Needless to say, that didn't take because I'm here tonight. But I need to tell you about the miracle of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, I knew nothing about the grace that we all have. The grace of having, I had to look that up. And the word grace is having a gift unearned. I have done nothing to earn this gift. This gift has been freely given to me, and I knew nothing about God's grace. And you know how a lot of us, after the meeting tonight, we'll go sit around and we'll talk. Or when we go to a meeting, we go to the meeting after the meeting and everybody tells her, can you top this story? Well, I had all my affairs sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I never had a DUI. And what was my can you top this story? So my can you top this story was, I was pronounced dead on arrival, feeling nothing, because I was not in touch with the gift of life. I was not in touch with God's grace in my life. I am a person who has had a very slow recovery. I did not find God as I understand Him until I was 5 years sober in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I used to not know what really happened at that 5 years. But you stick around these rooms and more will be revealed. I'm really sorry about my throat, guys. I feel a little dry. I don't know if that's what it is or just what, so all I can say is I will keep going. I hope it's not driving you crazy. But I just didn't get it. And I just didn't have that feeling of a higher power and all the things that you guys would talk about. And I was so afraid that I never was going to get it. And, you know, you would talk about your higher power. And I just didn't have those feelings. And I would walk around these rooms and I would talk the talk, but I wasn't walking the walk. Because I was so afraid if you found out that I didn't have a higher power, that you wouldn't want me to stay. So I played like I did. What was revealed to me is I go to a big book step study. And at that big book step study, we were doing the 5th step. And you know, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about more will be revealed. And more was revealed to me. And what happened was when I did my first 4th step, I did it while I was in treatment. I had gone to a treatment center. And I was in that treatment center for 6 weeks. And while I was in that treatment center, we did the first 5 steps. But the 4th step that I had done had been an autobiography, like the Hazelton autobiography or one of those things that you do. I had not done a 4th step like it is laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when I was 5 years and 4 months sober, I did another 4th step. And I did it exactly the way it's laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you do that, you got a ledger sheet. You got your resentments, and you got, you know, what was the cause and what it affected and what's your part in it. And I knew what my character defects were. I knew what my resentments were. I've got a ledger sheet there. I've got something to work with. Whereas if I read, you know, an autobiography, I don't have anything laid out that I can look at. And when I did that 4th step and read it to my sponsor and did a 5th step, I had taken a set of actions that were enough to produce a spiritual awakening. And I believe with all my heart that for me, I need to work those steps exactly the way they are laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I love, again, what Clancy says. Take a set of actions contrary to the way you feel. And that was what I did. I took a set of actions contrary to the way I felt. I wanted to say that, you know, that was the way I was supposed to, you know, I had done a 4th step. And I kept hearing in meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, but did you do it exactly the way it was laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? And I am so grateful today that I took that set of actions. Because what happened to me was I was sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this wonderful feeling came over me. And that feeling was, everything's going to be okay. And today I know that. Sometimes it's really hard because I've got this kind of head that wants to, you know, manage and control every situation. But when I just stop and take a deep breath, I know that everything is in perfect order. And if I just do the next indicated step, everything will work out perfectly because everything is in perfect order. But sometimes it's very hard for me to see that because I have this, you know, I have these eyes that only see one way. And sometimes it's very difficult for me to know what God's will is for me. But I have been around these rooms long enough now to know that everything is in perfect order. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like it is. At any rate, I ended up in a treatment center in Dallas, Texas on April the 11th of 1977. And by God's grace, in a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I've been here ever since. I truly believe in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I got out of treatment, I was told to get active in this program, and I did. And one of the things that I believe is that I'm going to get out of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in direct proportion to that what I put into it. So what I was told is if you go to a meeting and you don't feel like you've got anything out of that meeting, Polly, maybe you better check what you put into it. Because I'm going to get exactly out of Alcoholics Anonymous what I put into it. And I'm really grateful that I was taught to be active. And that was what's so fun about sharing with Debbie today as we drove in is that she's active in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I know that that's real necessary for me. And I like to think of our three legacies like a three-legged stool, and if you take a three-legged stool, it can hold 500 pounds. But if you take one of the, legs away, it falls over. So I truly believe that the recovery, which is the base of our triangle, is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And without the 12 steps as my foundation, I cannot do anything in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for me. And I need the unity. I need the fellowship. I need to gather up with people in Alcoholics Anonymous, because left to me, I will isolate or run off by myself. And I love the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the other side of our triangle is service. And I was told, Polly, if you want it, you have to give it away. And I think that's the thing that drives psychologists and psychiatrists crazy with people like you and me. Because you see, they're always saying, do it for yourself, take care of yourself. And one of the things that I've learned in this program is that I have a spiritual illness. And the only way that I can heal from a spiritual malady is to reach outside of myself and help another alcoholic. And I truly believe that the very thing that has made the foundation and has made the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is one alcoholic sharing with another alcoholic. And there's a lot of people in this program when they're working with others, and they'll say, well, if such and such wants this program, they'll call. Well, you know something, my friend? I am forever grateful that Bill didn't wait for Bob to call. And I'm here tonight to say I hope I never get too sober to call a newcomer in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was one of these people that was very scared. And I am so grateful that people reached out their hand to me and took me to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am so grateful for that. I've had a lot of gifts in this program, and I am so grateful for the gifts that I have been given. I have been given the gifts of learning about myself. When I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was a victim. I was a victim of the U.S. Air Force. I was a victim because I was an only child. I was a victim of the Baptist Church. I was even a victim because I was born a woman. I thought men had it better. And I'm so grateful tonight that I am not a victim. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says most of our problems are of our own making. Thank God. Because if my problems are of anybody else's making, I'm screwed. But as long as they're of my making, I have a shot at changing them. And Bill talks about, I think it's God-driven, so little faux pas there, but Bill writes in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that our problems are of our own making. And I believe that because it talks about change. Bill talks about change. He talks about a psychic change, a profound change, a total change. Other words, if you're sitting in this room tonight and you're new, I don't want to scare you to death, but you don't have to change much. You just have to change everything. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says I have to get rid of all my old ideas. And I don't know what your sponsor said to you, but my sponsor said to me, Polly, what part of all don't you understand? I've had a lot of problem with honesty in this program. I just did not know how to be honest. And I have a wonderful woman who's my sponsor, and she's 33 years sober. And one of the things I love about Ellen is she tells it like it is. And she told me, she says, Polly, you're a lot of fun and I love to be with you, but you always say yes, and I'm never sure you mean it. And I'm so grateful that she hit me with that truth, because one of the things I would do was just do this nicey nice stuff. I never ever knew how to be real. And I'm so grateful today, thanks to this program, that I have more honesty, because I didn't know about rigorous honesty. And today I'm learning about rigorous honesty. When I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was married. And I had been married for 19 years when I got here. And I knew for a long time that marriage was in a lot of trouble. But my husband had been retired from the military, and he was medically retired, and he had congestive heart failure. And there was something down inside of me that said he would die without me. He needed me to take care of him. And you know how people in Alcoholics Anonymous will get right in your face and they'll tell you the truth whether you want to hear it or not? Well, people got in my face and they said, Polly, your husband is not dying of congestive heart failure, you are. So we divorced when I was 3 years sober. I want to tell you how important I am in this man's life. 6 months later, he remarried. A much younger woman. And he's never been healthier or happier since. I found out he had a higher power and it wasn't me. I have found that out a lot in this program, that you have a higher power and it's not me. When I was 3.5 years sober, I married my best friend. And Debbie talked to you about Dave. And I'd known Dave since I was 6 months sober. And we were friends. In fact, Dave and I laugh today and we say if we'd have known we were going to get married, we'd have never told each other the things we told each other. And Dave knew a lot about me because I had to hit a bottom in this program that was every bit as devastating as the bottom I had hit behind alcohol and drugs, and that was behind relationships and sex. Because you see, I was so desperate to be loved, and I didn't know anything about love, and I just knew that if you loved and approved of me, I would be okay. And you know, people who loved me said, Polly, it's an inside job, and we can't give it to you. But I tried desperately to find love in all the wrong places. Dave had moved to Salt Lake City, Utah. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I keep getting frogs in my throat. Dave had moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, and he had come back to Fort Worth. And he told me, he says, Polly, I love you, but you need to get something straight. I don't want to have an affair with you. I want to marry you. And you know, things like that aren't supposed to happen to people like me. And Dave has totally and completely loved me unconditionally. He is my biggest cheerleader. And he has given me so much love and so much understanding that I have had the opportunity to grow through love in this program. I've also found out that love is a healer, and that wherever love is present, it will heal. And I've had a lot of icky character defects to surface since marrying Dave. And the worst character defect of all has been the character defect of jealousy. I'm here to tell you that I sponsor the most gorgeous women in Alcoholics Anonymous. They're all younger than me. Worst of all, they're all thinner than me. And they adore Dave, and Dave adores them. And I had a lot of problems with that. But what I have learned is that jealousy is just my own insecurities. And today I know when those icky feelings come over me, the only relationship that needs any attention is my relationship with God. And I am so grateful for that, because today I know that that's my barometer. When those icky feelings are there, I know it has nothing to do with Dave, and it has nothing to do with those beautiful women. It has only to do with my relationship with God. And for that, I am so grateful. Dave and I are entirely two different people. Dave tonight, as we talk, is sleeping somewhere in the high Sierras. Dave is a backpacker and he's a rock climber, and those are the things Dave likes to do. That is not what I like to do. I don't like to sleep anywhere where there's bears and snakes and all of that kind of stuff. But what Dave and I have learned to do is to let each other go. And you go be the very best Dave you can be, and Polly, you go be the very best Polly you can be. And because of that, we have brought to this marriage the very best of each one of us. And because of that, we are learning to grow. And we respect each other. And I didn't know that if you just let it go. I knew nothing about letting go. Dave and I had no idea how to have a relationship. All we knew how to do was take a hostage. And today I'm grateful to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous because you have taught me how to live. I want to quickly tell you about my two sons. When I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't know if I could stay sober because of what had happened to my 2 sons. I was so guilty about what the disease of alcoholism had done to my children. And I had to swallow some truth about myself that was so hard to swallow, and that was, Polly, you are a child abuser. And you know, I wasn't the kind of child abuser that physically beat my kids up, but I was the kind of child abuser who neglected and ignored my children. And the message I sent my children was, you're not worth anything. And what happened was that had a traumatizing effect on my boys. I got to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't know when is the last time you've ever seen a passed out drunk, but we don't breathe too good. And many is a time my oldest son has screamed at me, Mom, wake up, are you dead? And me to come to and see the fear in his eyes. And you know, I haven't had to come to in over 15 years and see that kind of fear in anybody's eyes because of something I'm doing. And for that, I've been overpaid. Well, my oldest son is one of our Al-Anon members. And you know, our Al-Anons need one of us, or they don't have a purpose for living. And Russ took care of me. He called work, he put me to bed, he took care of me. And when I sobered up, what would a good Al-Anon do but go marry a practicing alcoholic? And she sobered up. And one more time, Russ did not have a purpose for living. And my daughter-in-law called me up and she told me that my son had taken a bottle of sleeping pills and had cut up his arms. And I really thought I was just going to die the first time I heard this. Well, I'm here to tell you that would happen many times after that. My son would suffer from grave depressions, and he would want to hurt himself. And I knew what that was about because when I came to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I suffered with depression for 8 years while I was here. And I knew what it was like to feel so desperate that you just want to hurt yourself physically. If you can just hurt yourself physically, then it won't hurt so much emotionally. And I knew what that was about. And I was absolutely powerless to do anything. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says our dilemma was a lack of power. Well, Russ ended up divorcing the lady in Texas and moving to Michigan and marrying another lady. And they moved to New Jersey. And the hell would start. And what would happen is my son tried to take his life 6 times. And there were times that I just didn't believe that I could stand it. I knew that God was big enough to take care of me, but I didn't know if God was big enough to take care of Russ. But one of the things that I've learned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, that when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And what happened was, as I got invited, just like I am tonight, to go share somewhere else. And while I was gone, my daughter-in-law called me on the phone and she told me that my son had put a pair of scissors in his stomach. And I just did not believe that I could stand it. I was so devastated. And the next morning I was to talk, and I was destroyed. And when I got through talking, this man came up to me and he said, Polly, you and I need to talk. And we need to get into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we need to read the chapter to the agnostic. And you need to know that God either is or he isn't. And he is either all things or he's nothing. And that Russ is God's kid. And what God does with his kids is none of your business. And with that man's help, I was able to release my son. And 1 month later, Russ found the rooms of Al-Anon. And that's next month. It'll be 4 years that my son has not tried to hurt himself. And that's a miracle. Russ lived in New Jersey. Thanks. Russ lived in New Jersey, and I didn't have much of a relationship with Russ, and I haven't since I've been sober. And I would see him, several times a year, and we talked really often on the phone. But we hadn't really been around each other. And so last November, Russ called me on the phone, and he said, Mom, what would you think if I told you I was moving to Southern California? And Russ moved to Southern California last December. And he's been there now for almost a year. And it's been the most wonderful miracle in my life because we have had a chance to begin to heal. And God, in his infinite wisdom, everything is in perfect order. And it took every day of those 15 years. Because Russ and I have been able to sit in a therapy office, and I've been able to sit there and listen to his pain. And you know, I never could listen when he was a little boy. But thanks to you today, I can listen. And what I am so grateful of is that I almost died and missed the whole thing. And Russ is sitting there saying, Mom, it's not your fault. You were just sick. But today I can hear, and I am so grateful that I can listen. When I was 6.5 years sober, my youngest son called me on the phone and he said, Mom, I want what you have. And 6.5 years before, he didn't want what I had. 6.5 years before, I was supposed to attend a function at his school. And he says, don't you dare show up at my school because I am ashamed of you. And 6.5 years later, he wants what I have. We've had a lot of fun in sobriety. James and his wife, Kelly, we got to go to Seattle and celebrate Bill W.'s big family reunion. We've got to do things together, meet at conferences. When I go to Chicago and visit James and Kelly, I get to go to their meetings, and I get to be James's mom. The miracle of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. We had a wonderful miracle happen in our family a year ago, April. A year ago, April, James and Kelly got married. And James had been out to California, and he'd seen what we call AA weddings out there where, you know, you get married. We had this Marion judge out in California, and he marries people. And we all get together, and it's just like having a big AA meeting. And you get there, and you just wish everybody well. And so a year ago, April, we got to all go to Chicago and watch James and Kelly get married. And as I stood there and listened to all these people wish James and Kelly well, the goosebumps just ran all over me, and I was just overtaken with God's grace. Because you see, I almost died and missed the whole thing. But I knew, without a doubt, the reason that that whole day was taking place was because of a program called Alcoholics Anonymous. And a month ago, James and Kelly called Dave and I, and they told us that we're going to be grandparents. So we're going to have a sober baby in our house. And you know, one of the things that I was told is that each and every one of us make a difference. Because you see, I was told, Polly, you may be the only big book James ever reads. Because you see, when I found out that James was a drug addict, I thought I would just die. And today I know that each and every person in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous makes a difference. Because you know, this is a program of attraction. And when we walk out that door, we are an attraction. You know, it's easy for me to be a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous when I'm gathered up with you. But when I walk out those doors is when my program is put to the test. And I am so grateful today that you have told me those things. My life is so wonderful today that if you had given me a list of all the things that I wanted in sobriety, I'd have never had the nerve to ask God to give me the things that He has given me. I would have never had the nerve to ask God to give me a husband like Dave, friends like you, a job like I have. I would have never had the nerve. And you see, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, left to me, I would have settled for so much less. And the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says, left to my own devices, I'll self-destruct. The very best I could do for me was to get me pronounced dead on arrival. But thanks to a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, you have breathed life into me. And tonight, I am the woman I always wanted to be. Tonight, I am self-supporting through my own contribution, and I didn't know that I could do that. Tonight, I have loved one man with all my heart for 12 years and a few days, and I didn't know that I could do that. Today, I'm a good employer. I give my employer 100%. And I'm a good friend because you have taught me how to be a good friend. And today, I'm a good mom. And I'm so grateful that you have taught me how to be a good mom because that was the thing I could never be. One of the ladies I sponsor was having dinner with my son the other night. And she said to Russ, gosh, Russ, I wish I had a mom just like you. And Russ said, yeah, my mom is just the best there is. And the thing that I had to learn is that all of my kids' problems had my name on it, but all of their solutions have theirs. And there was nothing I could do to save my kids. And I had to learn that they have a higher power and that only God could take care of them. And sometimes that's really hard for me to remember because, see, I want to get in there and fix it. But thanks to you, I've been able to let them grow and let them be the very best Russ and James they can be. When I was in Center Hospital, one of the counselors used to start every day with a prayer, and I end my AA talks with it because it's what this fellowship means to me. I sought my God I could not see. I sought my soul eluded me. I sought my brother, and I found all three. Thanks.